Today I'll be taking you through how to use Pentaho data integration for PDI transformation as input to the report designer, and also how to publish these reports to the server. We know that report designer can be used to build, create, and publish reports in the various formats like HTML, PDF, and so on, using the various data sources like database, OLAP, XML, and so on. So when do we want to use PDI as an input to the report designer? There could be instances in which we want to use data directly from the text file or Excel spreadsheet, or when we need to do some processing of the information before it can be used in the reports. The report designer version I'm using is 3.9 and data integration version is 4.3. For my demonstration today, I have created two very simple reports. First is for getting the number of models associated with the different vendors for each product line. And the second one is for getting the name and number of models associated with different vendors for each product line. So let's see how I've created my reports and the transformation. So this is the first report I'm having with a simple layout. And if I run the report, you can see that this is a parameter-driven report. I'm selecting the different products, and for a particular product selected, in this case it's classic cars, it shows the different number of models associated with the vendor for the particular classic cars. Let's see how I have designed this report. So I have defined a parameter called product line, and I'm getting the query for the product line from the query called product list. If we look at the data set, I have defined the data set as Pentaho data integration. How I selected is, if I right click on the data sets, we can see the different options we can select as data source to the report. So I have selected Pentaho data integration in this case, and I have defined two queries, product list and get details. The product list query is for getting the data for the parameter product, and get details is the query from which I'm getting the data for designing the report. So here you can see this is the transformation I'm selecting for the report, and these are the different steps that are coming from the transformation. So for the product list, I'm selecting this particular step, unique product list, that's coming from the transformation for the data of the product list. And if I preview the query, you can see the different product lines that are coming. And for this main query, if I click on preview, it doesn't show the data because it's a parameter-driven report. If I click on the edit parameter, you can see that I'm passing the parameter that I defined in the report designer as a command line argument to the transformation. So this product line is being passed as a command line argument to the transformation. Now let's take a look at how I have designed the transformation. So this is my transformation for that particular report. I have two separate flows. So one is for getting the report data used for designing the report, and the second is for getting the parameter values, in this case, which is the unique product list. So using the get system info, I'm getting the parameter which is passed as a command line argument from the report designer. So I'm getting the value for the product line, or the product value in this one. And if we look at the query, so this is the query I'm having, and I'm getting the value for the parameter passed, the product value in here. And note that we need to enable this step to replace the variable with the value. And I'm getting the data from the previous step, which is the get system info. After that, I'm sorting it based on product line and vendor, and grouping it again based on product line and vendor, and I'm executing the group function for getting the different number of models associated with each vendor. In this step, I'm selecting the data fields which I want for designing the report. So I'm selecting product line, product center, and the count. And this step is being used as the input for designing the body of the report. So if you look at this query, I'm just selecting the fields, different fields. In this one, I'm selecting the field which I want, in this case, which is the product line, and selecting just the unique value of the product line. So this is how I have defined the first report and the transformation. Now let's take a look at the second report I have created. So this is my second report. This again another simple layout, and this again parameter driven. So in this case, I have defined two parameters. One is for selecting the product, and the second is for selecting a vendor. I have defined two parameters, one for getting the product value and one for getting the vendor value. And again, if you look at the data set, I have selected Pentaho data integration. And then defining three queries in this case, one for getting the main data for designing the body of the report, second one for getting the parameter value for the product, and third one for getting the vendor values. All of these. And if I click on the product list, so this is a particular step of the transformation I'm selecting for getting the data for this particular query. So if I preview this, you can see the different products. And if I click on this one, so this is the vendor list, and you can see the different types of vendors. And if you click on the main query, and it doesn't show any data because it's parameter driven. And if I click on edit parameter, you can see that I'm passing one as a command line argument, and in here this is a named parameter. So I already defined a parameter called vendor in the transformation parameter in the transformation. A named parameter is nothing but an explicitly named command line argument. So I'm associating the parameter I have defined in my report designer to the parameter already defined in the transformation. So the vendor parameter in the transformation already has a default value defined in the transformation. So now let's take a look at the transformation for this particular report. So this is the transformation for that report. I have three different flows. The first one is for getting the data for designing the body of the report. The second is for getting the unique product list for a parameter. And the third is for getting the unique vendor list for the parameter. I'm getting the command line argument using the get system data. So the product parameter is being passed into here. And if I look at the query, so this is how I have defined the query. This is for getting the command line argument, and this is the named parameter I mentioned some time back. So I'm enable the replace variables in script, and I'm getting the data from get system info for this argument. And for the vendor, I'm getting the value passed from the report designer. Also, I have defined that as a transformation parameter. So if you look at the transformation properties, which is parameters, I have defined the vendor and the default value as auto designed. And I'm sorting the rows based on product line and product name here, and selecting the fields which are required for designing the report. So in here, just selecting the fields, selecting the product line and getting the unique product line. And in here, I'm again selecting the fields, getting the product vendor this time, and getting the unique value of the vendor. So that's how my reports and transformation files look. Now there are two ways of associating the transformation file with the report designer. Either you can save it as a separate file within the separate file, or you can add the transformation file as a resource in the report designer. So in this one, I'm saving the transformation file as a separate file itself. So you can see that the transformation file I'm selecting is getCarDetails.ktr. In my second report, I'm adding the transformation file as a resource within the report. So the transformation file is embedded within the report. So if you see here, I'm just telling the name called transform, and how we got this is I'm adding the transformation file as a resource. So if you take file resources, for that we need to save the transformation as a XML file to use it as a resource in the report designer. So the transformation, I need to export it to XML. So if you take file, export it to XML and save it, and then you go to the report designer, click on file, resources, and you need to import the XML file which we just created in the transformation. So we need to import, select the particular file, give it an entry name, and select the XML content type. So I've already defined the transformation as transform, and that's why you're seeing the transform here. And I'm calling that transform for all the queries defined here. Now let's see how we can publish these reports to the server. In the case of a report which is saving the transformation file as a separate thing, you need to publish the report as well as copy the transformation file to the server. In the case of a report which is saving the transformation file as a resource, we just need to publish the report, and no need to copy the transformation file as a separate file. To share the reports in the server, they need to be in the Pentaho Solutions repository in the server. So let's see how we can publish this report. So I'm publishing the first report. My server is already running. So if you click on file, publish. So I'm logging into my server using the user credentials, validating the login data. I've created a folder called webinar inside my server, and I'll be publishing into the webinar folder as with the title number of modules by vendor. I've already published this, that's why both of these are present here. And when you're publishing, you need to give the publish password which is defined in the Pentaho Solutions repository system publisher config file. So this is already published, and in this one. And in this case, you need to copy the transformation file as well to the server. So publishing this file to the server. Publish. Logging into the server again. Selecting the folder which we want to publish. So this is the name I have given for this particular report. You have to give the publish passport and click on OK, and then it will be published to the server. So if you go to the server, these are the two reports that I have published, and running the first report. So this is the first report in which I'm associating how many modules are associated with a vendor for a particular product line, and which is parameter driven, of course. And the second report, this doesn't have a data for this particular vendor, so that is why it's showing no data. And going to the server, so I have copied the transformation file separately to the Pentaho Solutions folder only then my first report, which is saving the transformation file as a separate file, will work. For this particular report, I'm storing the report, the transformation file as a resource, so you don't need to copy the transformation file separately to the server. So yeah, these are my two reports, and that's it for today.